achieved.
At this point, if you're a longtime follower of this show, you are aware that I really enjoy the tournament or Grand Prix format, and I feel it should be employed more in mixed martial arts. And maybe not so much the way Bellator used to do it, where it was a season and every time we turn around there's another tournament going, but I think there are scenarios in which they are warranted. I like the fact that we crowned the first women's strawweight champion with a tournament, that we crowned the first men's flyweight champion with a 4-man tournament. I really think to reinvigorate the flyweight division, an 8-man Grand Prix would have been a great way to go about it. I had no real issue with the Figueiredo Benavidez title fight. They were the most deserved two fighters. Ultimately, it kind of left us with a mess now that Figueiredo missed weight. We didn't know that it was going to happen, so you can't really plan for that. He hadn't missed weight before. It's even more of a mess now that Benavidez got knocked out. There was a headbutt involved. It won't shock me if they run that back. If they run that back and say, okay, here's how it's going to go. Here's the direction I would like to see them go. I would like to see an 8-man Grand Prix. Let's make the winner of this tournament as crowned as champion as someone who absolutely has deserved it and has climbed to the top through a scenario in which, hey, look, we put it out there. We're telling one of these 8 individuals or 10 with an alternative bout, this is what's going to go down. So here's what I would like to see. And again, you can disagree with me or tell me there's fighters that deserve. So this is the pairings in the first round. You get Joseph Benavidez back in there. Kai Kara France, I think, is a solid fighter. I think that's a good first-round matchup for those two. Figueiredo gets in there. I want to see Figueiredo matched up with Alex Perez. Perez brings a lot of talent. That's a good fight for the first round. Winner goes to semifinals. I think I really like that matchup. Askarov is another solid another solid prospect in the division. I think he's one of these guys who hasn't been in the title picture before. Really injects some youth into this, or not youth, but just a new face into the competition. Let's put him up against Alexandre Pantoja. I think Pantoja is a talented fighter all across the board, and if Askarov's going to get through these guys and make a run at the title, that's a good first opponent. And finally, Brandon Moreno, who's just been in the conversation for a long time, against Raulian Paiva, another one of these guys who's relatively unknown, but he showed a lot in his last fight. And again, winner of that goes to the semifinals. That's a hell of a starting 4. And then what we're going to take, our alternative bout, we're going to take Jussier Formiga, who's the guy everybody's screaming at me right now saying, why is he not in that 4? He's had multiple opportunities to secure title shots and couldn't do it. So I'm going to take Jussier Formiga, and I'm going to match him up with Ray Borg, who's a guy who they've already fought once, the rematch. And it's a dual-purpose fight. I'm going to say, Ray Borg, you got to show us you can make weight. This is the alternative bout. You show us you make weight and you beat Formiga, you're going to take the spot of somebody in the semifinals if they can't go. If you make weight and win. That's your proving ground. For Formiga, the same thing. You got to prove you can win one of these big fights over in a position to get yourself a title shot. So if you beat Borg in a rematch and someone can't go in the semifinals, you're going to take that spot. And then on top of all that, if no one pulls out of the semifinals or even finals, as the winner of this fight would be in line to take one of their spots in the semifinals or finals, the winner of that matchup most likely is in line for a title shot down the road. They're two established fighters who certainly could contend for a title if they can prove their deficiencies are overcome. As far as how I think it would play out, I think Benavidez beats Kai Kara France. I think Figueiredo beats Alex Perez. Perez is going to have trouble with his power. I think Askarov can grind out Pantoja. I think that's a close fight. And I actually like Paiva to defeat Moreno. I think he's able to use his length and he beats him there. So my semifinals then would be set up. I think you go Askarov versus Benavidez, and you go Figueiredo versus Paiva, two established veterans against two up-and-coming fighters, lesser knowns, but certainly capable fighters. And I'm not going to give predictions for the rest of it, but I think it definitely plays an interesting. And of course, you have the Borg Formiga waiting in the wings, and ultimately you crown a tournament champion. Quarterfinals all in one night, semifinals another night, and then you have a championship bout on the next night. It's a huge opportunity to reinvigorate the division that is starting to rebuild itself. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking in the upcoming March 7th UFC pay-per-view, UFC 248, which will go down in Paradise, Nevada. It'll feature 5 main card fights, including 2 title fights, which I will give you my predictions for in this episode of the show. All of my preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can check them out there. They'll be posted throughout the fight week. I always post blanks like coming soon, and then they will come. The fights will show up periodically throughout the week until they're all usually posted by Thursday night, Friday morning. Now, as far as what I'm coming off an 8-4 event, which my HBC, my hardcore betting cluster in the betting pack, won 21.9 units. It was a nice little recovery from a slump. I had a good hot streak and then a slump. My CBC, which is my casual betting cluster where we bet less, we take bigger risks. It didn't produce. We ultimately would have won some cash. We lost one key fight, which was the Benavidez main event, which is unfortunately the way that played out. It's been a bit of a struggle with that bet pack recently, and I understand why people look at that. But again, it's one of those bet packs where it's like you don't want to bet as much. And the reason being is because you were, like I said, and I don't want to say casual in a negative way, but you don't want to commit as much. You want to have a good time. You want to win some cash, and you're fine if you lose it all. That's the approach we take for the casual betting cluster. For the hardcore betting cluster, it's more of a grind. We're going to bet less per unit. We're going to grind it out, and we're going to be happy with what we get because it's less risk and less reward, but still a nice reward at the end of the thing. So if you're interested in buying those bet packs for $15, it's a new subscription period for the next 2 months. You're not locked in. You pay for the 2 months. You get it for free for the next 2 months after, or not for free, unlimited access for the next 2 months, and then we move on after that. So if you're interested, certainly subscribe. And as far as my channel is concerned, please like my videos if you do enjoy the content. Feel free to comment. Let me know. I will do my best to reply. I don't always, but I do appreciate and I do read them. Please be aware of that. Subscribe. Click the notification bell so you get notifications. And also, follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I do my best to post stuff on there as much as I possibly can. It's a busy time of year right now. I'm a school teacher. For those who aren't familiar with it, I'm a high school teacher. I teach history, of all things. And I also coach a lot of high school sports. And I also run I'm the president of a very large recreational softball league and for adults. So it's a busy time right now. So I have been a little inactive of late, and I'm a little late getting this video out. So I appreciate your patience. This has been a little bit of a long ramble. And we've got 5 fun fights, so let's get to that first main card prediction. The opening fight of the pay-per-view transpires in the UFC's welterweight division as the 19-8-1 Alex Cowboy Oliveira takes on the 15-7 Max Payne Griffin in what should be a definite highlight or fight of the night candidate. Oliveira has hit a bit of a roadblock in his career. He's lost 3 consecutive bouts. He's just 2-4 in his last 6. Prior to that, including that stretch, he did have a 6-1 run, really had his name out there and had him kind of one of those it fighters, but he's certainly cooled off a bit. For Griffin, he's lost 3 of his last 4. He had a very close fight with Brandon Moreno, which I had him picked in. He had a even closer fight against Thiago Alves, which I thought he won and was kind of robbed. He was in Alves' hometown. And overall, he has just 3 victories over his last 8 appearances, which is a little bit difficult to build a career around when you're struggling at this level. Physically, same height, same reach. Oliveira is 3 years younger. And Oliveira did fight at lightweight, which is worth noting. He had trouble making weight, but you'd trend to think he'd be a little bit small on the smaller side as far as body thickness. But hey, I don't think it shows up too much here. Now, Oliveira is at his best with power and pressure. He likes to brawl and eat strikes, but really get in there and mix it up. He's got a lot of unorthodox and awkward movement that he'll incorporate as well, which can throw guys off. And he can work from distance and crack guys from range with those lanky arms he brings to the table. One area he does a lot of effective work in is in the clinch. He's very good at stalling guys out in the cage, clinching them, really wearing on them, making them carry his weight, and doing some damage and setting up additional strong positions. If he can stall his opponent in that position and nullify their offense, it can certainly add up and help him out later in the fight, which could be a big factor here. On the mat, he has a serviceable submission game, as he showed, for example, against Tim Means. But he tends to get a little bit too aggressive and can get himself put in some bad spots. And he has been submitted, I think, 4 times for his career, which is absolutely a concern. Now, for Max Griffin, he's a capable boxer with some pop in his hands and a very workable ground game. In his win over Mike Perry, which is probably his most noteworthy win, he was smart. He avoided brawling with Perry and getting there and mixing it up, and just was technically more sound, and that ultimately led to the victory. When he fought Imadaev, I'm apologizing, he showed a lot of heart and he got it out a very close fight, and that tends to be what his fights come down to. A lot of his fights are very close, relatively back and forth, and he's had a history of getting stuck in those close fights and not always winning them. And maybe it comes down to that final round, and that might not be his strongest round. He tends to slow down a little bit, and he hasn't been knocked out a lot. He's been knocked out once, and it was that death by accumulation against Colby Covington. But he does get hurt, and it's noticeably hurt. Whether he gets wobbled or he's taken damage and his mouth's open, he's starting to bleed, he wears damage in a lot of fights. His body language tends to not be always positive. Maybe it's because it's fatigue setting in as well, which creates a problem, but ultimately it's not a good look. And his takedown defense is not amazing either. We've seen him taken down in fights, and if he can be put on his back and pushed around a little bit by a guy like Oliveira, that's going to add into that fatigue factor. That's going to be an issue where he gets tired and starts to struggle to land enough offense. He's not an orthodox, the type of striker who's going to be super technically sound either. He does some unconventional stuff. He's got a little bit of body motion. It's a little herky-jerky at times. The other thing here, and this is worth noting, is when you get a fighter on a 3-fight losing streak, it really puts that sometimes is the death knell by itself. You're 3 fights lost and you're done in the UFC. But you come into a UFC fight having lost 3 in a row, that puts a lot of pressure on you, puts the onus on you to come up with a victory, and we see a lot of guys rise to the occasion and win it for a couple of reasons. Number one, you lose 3 in a row, you're facing higher competition. The UFC more often than not will give you a step back in competition and give you an opportunity to regain your footing. You add that to the fact that you're facing lesser competition. You add that to the fact that you are now facing potential removal from the company. And you look at Alex Oliveira. Gunnar Nelson's a hell of a tough out, and he had a lot of success against Gunnar Nelson. Mike Perry is a tough dude. And then you go to Denmark and you're facing Nicholas Dalby in his return to the UFC in a big fight for him. That's a tough spot as well. So, they're not exactly been easy fights. And I'm not saying Max Griffin's an easy fight, but what I am saying is it's a very winnable fight for Alex Cowboy Oliveira. And I think this is a must-win fight for him. Griffin tends... I think Oliveira is a little more durable and offers a little bit more offensively as far as his variety and diversity is concerned. The fact that Griffin tends to fade too much, and I think Oliveira can offer him that type of fight that's going to push him and make him fade. I think he's going to be very demanding in this matchup. He's going to clinch. He's going to scrap it out with him. I don't like how Griffin doesn't always show up in the later stages of matchups, and I think this fight is a fight you have to show up. You have to be there in the round 3 to decide the winner. I think Oliveira is going to push him early, and I think Oliveira, I don't know if he can get him out of there, but I think he does more, and my prediction is Alex Oliveira to defeat Max Griffin by decision. Continuing in the UFC's welterweight division, the returning Neil Magny, 21-7-0, takes on the streaking 17-5 Li Jingliang, in which should be a very interesting matchup for both guys. Li's coming off a massive win. He upset Zaleski dos Santos at home in China. He has won 3 in a row and 7 of 8, including 5 knockouts. That is a massive it's a massive run for a guy who was a relative unknown when he came to the organization. For Magny, he's coming off a loss via knockout to Santiago Ponzinibbio. I think he took that fight on short notice, if I remember correctly. He had one back-to-back in 3 or 4 prior to that defeat, and now, of course, the big thing with him, he's coming off a suspension as well. He's been out of action for 16 months. He had a positive drug test, and that's certainly a concern. The layoff and how the drug test impacts him as well. And that concern, that distraction, does that impact his performance here? Physically, Magny's a very tall guy for the division, 3 inches taller, of a 9-inch reach advantage on the Leech, and he is 1 year older, though, than the Chinese fighter. Now, first thing to look at here is Li is fighting in the USA for the first time since 2017. He fought and defeated Bobby Nash in that fight via knockout. I think he got hurt early in that matchup, but rallied back. Conversely, over his last 6 matchups, he's fought at home in China 3 times, fought in Singapore twice. His only time in that last 6 where he fought outside of that region, where he went still technically in that part of the world, he went to Australia and lost to Jake Matthews. And that's certainly a question, because there has been a lot of guys talking about fighters who fight out of China or that part of the world. When they fight at home, they're in a much better spot than obviously if they fight on the road. It's the idea of a home versus away game, and a lot of people like to fade those fighters when they go on the road to the United States, especially off a successful appearance at home. We'll see if that holds true here. Now, also the coronavirus, which is something that's becoming a major issue, just a distraction and an interruption. But again, I think Li Jingliang, being a professional, being a guy who's been around mixed martial arts or the UFC for a while, I think he'll be adequately prepared and mentally focused coming. This might even be motivated to go out and put on a good performance, and find something positive. Now, as far as Magny, he's at his best when he uses his reach and volume in conjunction, and he doesn't always do that. He's a good volume striker, but at times he has trouble maintaining that gap, which something he needs to focus on. Again, when he does that, and that's why he had some success and kind of had a bit of a surge there before his layoff, is because he was finding a better way to pop guys on the outside, keep them on that outside range, and then do it with volume as well. But what we have seen with him is he struggles with guys who bring a lot of pressure and do so with power. Santiago hurt him and finished him in the 4th round with bringing power. You go back to his Lorenz Larkin fight. I had Larkin all day in that matchup because I felt Larkin had the techniques to just put it on Magny. And Magny's not a physically thick, big guy, and that's what happens when he's so tall. It does create an issue in the sense that he was unable to deal with taking the impact of those shots. So it tells you that I think a strong, powerful fighter who can move forward and land shots on Magny is going to have success. He also has 2 submission losses. And again, the guys he got submitted by, Rafael dos Anjos and Damian Maia, 2 world beaters on the ground. So it's not like guys that are just anybody's tapping him out, but it still tells us if he gets to the ground, he could have some issues. Now, Li does a good job of bringing that pressure, and he throws hard, heavy strikes. He's got some power. He's shown you can knock guys out. He's willing to eat punches and has been wobbled before and has been hurt. against Dos Santos, you take a guy like Dos Santos out, who's a very good striker in his own right, and again, that fight happened in China. I believe it's China. But he's a very good striker in his own right. He's very durable. He's very tough. And you take him out like he did, and he hurt him early in the fight, and he finished him late. That shows a lot of good things for Jingliang in this matchup. He has scored back-to-back late fight stoppages, which tells us he's able to wear on guys. He builds up that damage. He does a lot. He puts a lot on them, and eventually gets them out of there with just pressure and physicality and power strikes. Magny was on the defensive against Ponzinibbio for the majority of that fight, backing up. He's not a big power striker in his own right, and I think he's going to find it hard to deal with his aggressive power, possibly because he doesn't have the power to back guys up. He doesn't have the power to get their respect. He's not a guy who's going to come one-punch you and drop you and put you out there. Look for Lee in this matchup to push forward, throw with that power, throw with that volume, and just hurt Magny and outwork him for the duration. Lee's also, has that option to take Magny down. I think it's there if he can get him on the ground and control top position. Magny's no slouch on the mat, but he needs to, Lee needs to be mindful of his limbs and his positioning. But I think what we see here is that Magny's going to get outworked for the most part. Lee needs to make this an ugly fight, which I think he can do. Get on the inside of that range and go to work. I don't think Magny can handle him here. I don't think Magny's going to be able, and the layoff's not going to help him either. Magny tends to get a little bit tired if pushed. And I think that's, if he's not dictating the pace, I think it shows up here. And my prediction is Jingliang Lee to defeat Neil Magny. I'm going to take Lee by, let's go with TKO. Cutting down one weight class, we head to the UFC's lightweight division as Beneil Dariush, 17-4-1, takes on the 11-1-1 Drakkar Klose, in what should be a very good matchup. It's a very good piece of matchmaking by the UFC. This fight was actually rebooked from the summer of 2019. It was supposed to happen, it didn't, and now we're getting it now, which is fantastic. Dariush comes in as having won 3 in a row and kind of a little bit of a resurgence after a 3-fight winless skid. He has back-to-back submission wins over Drew Dober and Frank Camacho. For Drakkar Klose, he has won 3 in a row. Lando Venata, Bobby Green, and Christos Giagos. He's 5-1 in the UFC overall. Now for Dariush, 1 inch taller, 2 inch reach advantage, and he's the younger fighter by a year. Now both of you guys are capable ground fighters with good striking. Klose comes from a wrestling background, Dariush from jiu-jitsu. Klose has landed takedowns in all but one of his UFC fights, and he's had multiple takedowns in all but 2. For Dariush, he has landed takedowns in 3 consecutive bouts, and he is rarely taken down. That's worth noting. Where Klose has been taken down in fights, he was actually he gave up 2 takedowns against Giagos and was putting some tough spots. Giagos took his back and really had him in a couple tough spots there that made the fight closer than a lot of people expected it to be. So, and with Beneil Dariush, when you look at this matchup, and again, we're only talking about the grappling here. Dariush is the type of fighter, he will capitalize on any opening. Against Drew Dober, he was in trouble. He was losing that bout. He got a beautifully set up armbar for the submission. Against Frank Camacho, it took him one opportunity to get him down, got to his back seamlessly and flawlessly, and boom, the choke was almost locked in as he got into the position, and the fight was over shortly thereafter. So Klose is not as good as Klose is on the mat, and has as good as much success as he has had. He's a good grappler in his own right. You don't want to mess around with Dariush and give him positions where he can capitalize, because he will get you out of there. And at the very least, if he doesn't get out of you, he's the type of guy who can get in a position and control you for a large portion of that bout, and suddenly the fight's slipping away, your gas tank's gone, and you're in serious trouble. Now, on the feet, both guys are sound. I think Dariush is a little bit more active, even though the numbers wouldn't dictate it. He works his jab and kicks very effectively. Klose's only loss came against David Timur because he couldn't deal with a sharper, more active striker. He just seemed frustrated. Timur used a lot of movement, was bouncing around the outside, and Klose was actually putting his hands up and always calling on the referee to make him engage. It's like, no, dude, the guy's out fighting you. He's being defensively sound. He's being offensively more successful than you. Do something about it. Now, here's my big concern with Beneil Dariush in these exchanges. His chin's not amazing. His chin's been cracked a couple of times. Now, that being said, Klose doesn't seem to have big knockout numbers. He's got 4 wins by knockout, the last in 2015 on the regional scene. He's a decision machine. Does that tell me he can't win this fight by knockout? Absolutely not. He hits hard enough that if he catches Dariush square, he's going to put him away. Klose tends to be involved in close decisions. Drakkar Klose tends to be involved in close decisions. There you go. Klose with a K versus and then Klose with a C. And Dariush has shown he's undefeated in decisions. He's shown if he gets you to go the distance, all his losses have come by finish. If you go the distance, Dariush is probably in a position to beat you, with a positional advantage, which he's very difficult to get the better of, augmented by a solid striking attack. That's going to be very tough. Again, he melds together those two options very well, and if Klose can be taken down by Christos Giagos and other fighters he's faced, Beneil Dariush can take you down as well. And Dariush has shown he can be pretty consistent with his jab, and I just feel like Klose is the type of striker who's going to go out and he looks for things. He feels like he's landing stuff that he's not, and he doesn't show a lot of urgency in his attacks. And he'll allow large chunks of a fight to slip away, and not deliver in those scenarios, and his opponent's outworking him. Not doing anything special or flashy, they're just doing more. And one thing here, I don't think Klose is going to come out looking for takedowns, and that's been a big key to success. That's why he wins all these fights he wins, because he lands a couple of takedowns, gets some positional advantages. I don't think that'll be there against Beneil Dariush. I don't think he's going to want to take him down. He might not be able to if he does want to take him down. That's a tough spot to be in. Again, this stands to be a very close fight. I think the edges lie with Dariush. He's the more conventional, active striker. He's got a superior grappling game. And Dariush, again, Klose, if he doesn't have his takedowns to rely on, that removes one of his key weapons. I think we go to the scorecards here, and my prediction is Beneil Dariush to defeat Drakkar Klose by decision, possibly a split, but I got Dariush with it. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the women's strawweight division for a UFC title fight as the reigning champion Weili Zhang, 21-0, takes on the former champion Joanna Jedrzejczyk with a current record of 16 wins and 3 losses. Now, it's a former champion Joanna trying to reacquire her belt. She defended it 5 times. She laid the groundwork as the best champion they've had in this division. Zhang obviously looking to preempt that or to take that over, and she needs a win here. When you look at Joanna, she beat Jessica Andrade fairly definitively over 5 rounds. She lost to Rose twice, even though I thought she won the second one and recaptured her belt. She goes to 125 and loses to Valentina Shevchenko. Good showing for herself, but Shevchenko's a monster, and Jedrzejczyk's just a little bit small for that division. And then she beats Michelle Waterson, and now she gets a shot here against Zhang. Now, for Weili, she's coming off a impressive victory. She's on an impressive run. Not an impressive run, an amazing run. She lost her pro debut and has gone undefeated since. She's 4-0 in the UFC. That wonderful, huge win against Jessica Andrade. I got it wrong. I love Andrade. Andrade's one of my favorite fighters, and she took her out in 42 seconds. Prior to that, she had beaten Tecia Torres and Jessica Aguilar, and I felt those fights hadn't aged very well. Those wins were not exactly impressive, and that's why I kind of went with Andrade in that match. I thought Zhang was maybe getting a push based on circumstance, and she proved her doubters wrong in that fight. Now, physically, Joanna 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. Zhang is the younger fighter by 2 years. Now, if Jedrzejczyk recaptures her title and becomes Joanna champion again, that brings it's full circle. It brings that sequence full circle and gets her back to where she feels she should be. She has the mentality and the mindset of a champion, and she's absolutely out to reclaim her title, and I'm impressed with her. Now, the big concern here is how well will Zhang fight away from home. Now, she beat Danielle Taylor in her debut and Tecia Torres both in the USA and put on good performances. So it's not like this is brand new to her, but still, like I mentioned with the Jingliang fight, is that sometimes fighters coming out of their home countries, especially when they have to travel so far, the east to west travel, it becomes a detriment and a problem. Now, for Joanna, she's Polish, but she's fighting in the UFC the USA for the 10th time. So she's the more familiar fighter to the turf. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal for Zhang, but you never know. Obviously, there's concerns with the coronavirus, COVID-19, serving as a distraction at China. We already know that Zhang has had to move her camp. She's gone to Thailand and Dubai over the concerns. Are those distractions? I don't know. Sometimes going on the road and hunkering down can help you to really bring out the best in you because you're able to focus wholeheartedly on your training and prepare, and it's a better spot. Not always, though. And again, as I previously mentioned, the other prediction is a trend of that Asian fighters who fight very well at home and then come on the road and go somewhere else and fight again. I don't know if at this caliber and this level, if that trend still applies. Obviously, we'll find out. Now, her 42-second win over Jessica Andrade is very impressive, but is it as impressive as a 5-round wide decision victory that Joanna had against Andrade? It's impressive that she's able to finish Andrade, but can she keep that up? Can she put forth an effort that is constantly superior than a challenger and a dangerous fighter like the Brazilian? Now, Andrade was a big step up from Torres and Aguilar, especially with considering how significantly they've faded in recent fights. 42 seconds is not enough to show us that Zhang, at least on that basis, is at this level where Joanna is, where Rose Namajunas was, where Andrade was. I get it, a win is a win, but still there's a lot of question marks there. Now, Weili's a very fast starter. We've seen that time and time again, that fight and other fights as well. She comes out hard. How does that hold up her 5 rounds? She's never gone 5 rounds as far as I can remember. I've looked through, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. That being said, when she fought Tecia Torres, her 3rd round was her best. That was a very demanding fight, back and forth, a lot of grinding, a lot of grappling, a lot of striking. She landed 61 significant strikes in round number 3. That was her strongest round, so that tells us she actually gets stronger. At least that's how she in that fight. And there was a lot of grappling, a lot of exchanges. Torres is a difficult fighter when you get on the inside to just control and to be, And I thought Zhang did a very good job in that matchup. She's strong in the clinch. She's aggressive in pursuit of takedowns when she wants them. That could be an energy zapper against Joanna, whose takedown defense is very solid, but could also it also is very difficult for. It is also a very difficult scenario for Joanna to constantly be defending off, especially if Zhang's still doing damage at range. JJ needs to use Joanna needs to use her counter wrestling effectively. Torres was a willing grappler in that fight and got drawn into and reversed into grappling exchanges on multiple occasions. That was absolutely a concern. If Joanna can disengage every time she tries to grapple that anti-wrestling, the anti-clinch game, that could be huge. And Joanna can do damage in the clinch. I just don't know if she wants to hang out there too long because it does create opportunities for getting taken down. Zhang was getting hit in close by Torres every time she closed the gap, and she was throwing a lot of spinning back fists and strikes that just, it's like, can you do that over 5 rounds? The return versus what you lose is concerning. Costs you cardio and definitely doesn't have the results if you don't land it frequently enough. Joanna looked very sharp against Waterson. She was landing strikes. Her jab looked sharp. Her kicks looked good, and that's huge. But again, Waterson is a smaller size fighter. Has fought at atomweight before. Zhang is not. Zhang is very physical. And the thing we look at here, there's 2 things, and people are talking about different scenarios here. I think they're all applicable. Zhang has the power edge against Joanna. Joanna can absolutely batter you until you fold. Zhang has shown she has big-time power and vicious striking potential to hurt you with elbows or knees or one-shot punches as you move forward. Again, smashing Andrade is no simple fate. And that's a huge thing. But on the converse, Joanna's not going to rush forward face first into that onslaught. She's going to be more technical. But we also have to be concerned that if Zhang can push her and close that gap, she'll be in a position to land that power. Zhang is the more physical fighter. The big key here, and that people aren't being aware of, is she can match Joanna's volume, and that's huge. Joanna's key to winning is volume and battering you from start to finish, and you not being able to hurt her. I also think Zhang has the grappling and wrestling edge in her back pocket, even if it means one takedown periodically, even if it's enough just to keep Joanna thinking about that and possibly dropping her hands a little bit in defense of a takedown attempt. It creates variety and just a different layer that Zhang can offer that Joanna cannot. Joanna does have the experience of fighting deeper into fights. She's fought more high-level competition. She's fought in the grander, bigger stage more often. And, of course, fighting in the United States as well. But I'm not sure she can hold up with the combination of physicality and volume that Zhang can bring, unless Weili slows down a little bit, and that is a possibility. It is hard to reclaim a title once you've lost it. It's hard to go out and get that belt back. It's not impossible. We've seen guys do it on multiple occasions, but again, it's not easy. And especially when you have a champion here that is as good as Zhang has been over a prolonged period of time at both the pre and current UFC level. There's a lot of question marks here, but I think ultimately what this comes down to is that Zhang can match Joanna's key weapon, which is her volume. She's going to have, her strikes are going to be a little more impactful. Even if she doesn't match her volume shot for shot, her strikes I think will be more impactful. And we have the grappling edge. I think Zhang's in a better place. So my prediction is Weili Zhang to defeat Joanna and Jedrzejczyk by decision. We move now to the co-main event of the evening for a UFC middleweight title fight as the champion, undefeated 18-0 Israel Adesanya takes on the challenger, former title challenger Yoel Romero, the Soldier of God, 13 wins, 4 losses, and no draws. Now, this is one of those scenarios where we're seeing a fighter lose into a better matchup. As Romero comes into this fight having lost back-to-back bouts, he is 1-3 over his last 4. Faced top competition, but there's still losses. He's had some issues making weight in title fights. It's been very frustrating. For Adesanya, he's 7-0. He's had the perfect escalation of opposition. You couldn't have laid it out better. Knocking out Robert Whittaker in the last fight, which I got correct. Nearly finishing Kelvin Gastelum late. And prior to that, just good, solid competition. Middling guys, or the entry-level guys, middling opponents, top-tier guys, the elite of the elite, and then boom, now you are the elite. Physically, Adesanya, 6'4", big guy for the division, 4 inches taller, 7-inch reach advantage, and he is 18 years younger than Yoel. Yoel is a freak of nature. The fact that he's able to compete at this level when he's nearly 20 years older than his opponent. And to give things into perspective, when Brock Lesnar came in and fought Randy Couture, Brock was 14 years older than Randy. Brock wasn't a spring chicken by any stretch of the imagination, but Randy's old as fuck, and that's the credit we give Randy. The guy's a fucking monster. But there's only a 14-year gap. Here, it's 18 years. That's huge. Now, as far as this matchup, we have what we on the surface say it's a wrestler versus a kickboxer, but let's be realistic. Romero wrestles, but it's just a secondary aspect of his attack. He's not going to go out. The last time we saw him go out and use wrestling as his primary form of offense was against Brad Tavares when he landed 6 or 7 takedowns and really took him out of his element. Romero is a dangerous striker. He throws a lot of techniques, and most of them come with fight-ending potential. He is a guy who uses a lot of momentum and timing shifting, where he's just showing different looks, and it's very difficult to read him. He's slow, then he explodes. He's fast, and then he's slow. He's there, and then he's not. He's in, and he's out. He's just very difficult to time. Lots of hand motion, lots of body motion. It's all meant to set up his offense and make you unaware of what's coming, and then it makes it more effective. Now, the question is, will all of that work against a seasoned, talented, and very confident striker like Israel Adesanya? I'm not sure it will. Adesanya works exceptionally well at distance. He stays on the outside. He can land big single strikes in there. He's creative. He's fast. Hard body kicks, very quick, there's a lot of kicks here, very quick low kicks. He's got that long left jab. His punches are very straight and then very direct. So for a guy who sometimes uses an open guard or his hands are a little bit low like Romero, that can create issues. Once he moves in, look for knees from the clinch, which is an opportunity. I don't anticipate him wanting to move in too often against Romero because that sets up Romero's wrestling and gives Romero an opportunity to hit him. He dropped Kelvin Gastelum with a counter right hand. He landed a spinning elbow in there as well. He nearly got the finish at the end. That's very impressive. His counter-striking skills are unbelievable. His ability to slip and use head movement and fire back, wow. We've seen him slip out of range and land a jab, land something with power. He'll even throw a head kick. He'll slide out of range when you throw a punch, and boom, as you're retracting your strike, his head kick is coming up. So you have to go offensive to defensive very quickly and anticipate what's coming. It could be a head kick, could be a jab, could be a body kick, could be any number of things. That makes his techniques that much more effective. Defensively, one of the keys to his success is he's always moving away. He moves away under pressure very well, and because he can strike, you have to be very mindful of the distance you close. But he slides out of range, he avoids damage, had good head movement, and because he's out of range, he diminishes the impact of anything you do land on him. So not only are you not landing enough, whatever you do land isn't as impactful. It's not as successful. It's a huge, huge difference than a guy who's going to stand in the middle and trade with you. I'm not saying he won't trade and you can't hit him, but it's just not going to be as much. Robert Whittaker is a very good striker in his own right, was having a lot of trouble reaching him, even with a very active attack. Kelvin Gastelum had some success jumping in and landing, but was eating big shots and almost got finished in the process. Whittaker had some success and tried the same approach and got hurt and got finished as a result. Adesanya made him pay every time he jumped in, eventually landing something big and getting him out of there. Can Romero engage? And the thing with Romero is, can he engage enough, close that gap enough, land, hurt him, and either finish him or do enough to take a decision without getting tired or counter-struck and knocked out? Romero is 1-3 in his last 4 decisions. His only win, a controversial split decision against Jacare Souza. His last clear decision win was it was 2014 against Brad Tavares when he used a lot of wrestling, and there was only 3 rounds. Romero's the type of fighter who likes to wait for his opportunities and then engages. And when he does so, they either change fights and he wins them by stoppage, or they don't happen, or they're not impactful enough, and he loses a decision. If he can't take advantage of these big moments, he's not nearly as effective a fighter. And I think that'll be the case here. Can he do enough against Adesanya in his brief moments? I don't think he can. Adesanya is hard to hit even when you're firing him constantly and pressuring him and looking to close the distance. When you're a fighter, again, maybe his idea of mixing things up and being unpredictable and attacking when Adesanya doesn't expect it, or when he's, attacking in small bursts, maybe that's the approach that'll get the job done here, but it just feels like it's too infrequent to be effective. And Adesanya, again, he's hard enough to hit when you're throwing a whole bunch at him. Trying to snipe him is going to be even more difficult. Few will land, fewer will actually have an impact that changes something. Maybe Romero goes with his wrestling to throw him off. Maybe, but I don't think Yoel is the type of guy who's going to come out and completely change his game plan here. That would be what I'd tell him, but I don't think it's what's going to happen here. This is the 4th time in his last 5 fights the title's been on the line for Romero. He's missed weight twice. There's a lot of pressure on him to win this fight. Again, I don't think he's the type of guy who really cares. He's just out there to have a good time and fight and put on a good show and win a championship if he can. I don't think any of this matters ultimately. I think Adesanya avoids the majority of Romero's offense. He lands a jab. He throws counter strikes effectively. He works his kicks. He just outclasses Romero, and we'll see Romero after round 2 will start to slow down, and Izzy will be able to avoid almost everything he throws in rounds 3, 4, and 5 is what I'm anticipating, and he'll be able to land his own offense. Romero's a tough thing. He's built out of iron, or whatever the hell you want to say he's built out of. He's going to be difficult to get out of there. He's been knocked out once. Rafael Fazio knocked him out in his debut back in Strikeforce, the fight I predicted wrong, even though I said Romero was going to be somebody to watch in the light heavyweight division, now middleweight. But ultimately, I think this is just a bad matchup for him unless he goes to his wrestling or at least augments with his wrestling. Nonetheless, my prediction is Israel Adesanya to defeat Yoel Romero by decision to reclaim, or to hold on to the UFC's middleweight championship. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 248. We'll see how things play out. My preliminary predictions will be posted throughout the week at kamikazeoverdrive.net, so please check them out. It should be one hell of an exciting fight weekend. Very much looking forward to it. As always, thank you for tuning in. The bet packs will be for sale for $15 in the bet shop. We're coming off a serviceable night. It could be better. It could have been a lot worse. We're going to try and start rebuilding things here. Please, like and subscribe subscribe to my channel, like my videos, comment, and if I have the opportunity, I will respond. You can follow me on Facebook, and obviously follow me on Twitter as well, KO_predictions. I do my best to post things and talk as much as I can, but again, it's been a busy time the last month or two for me, so I apologize for my lack of activity at times. Nonetheless, thank you for tuning in, guys, and I will see you back here after the bell. Take care.